how did you get to New York City?
I guess from being born here. And then, yeah, as hard as I try to leave, it keeps pulling me back in. So, yeah.
Were you born in Manhattan or where?
Queens.
In Queens.
Yeah.
Your family's here multi-generations, or what's the background?
My mom was born here, but my mom's side, my grandfather's from, my grandfather also was born in Brooklyn, but my grandmother's from Iraq, and then my dad's from France. So, yeah.
Grandmother from Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
How the hell did she get here?
She was being persecuted for being Jewish.
Really?
Yeah, she's living in Baghdad. And all of the family decided to go to Israel, where they'd be safe. And she decided she wanted to go to New York to be a scientist. So she was the only one that left when she was 16. And she went to NYU to study chemistry.
Do you know anything I don't about the Iraqi persecution of Jews at that time? Like, what was it, a pogrom? What was going on?
Yeah, I guess I don't know the exact specifics, but it is interesting. There actually are my family actually made a detailed book that I should really reread of everything that happened that led to them being forced to leave. But yeah, I know more much smaller details of, I don't know, it actually, whenever my grandmother spoke about Baghdad, it actually sounded really peaceful and beautiful. And she always talked about how much she loved being surrounded by animals and being around all the nature. And then I guess as soon as it was unsafe for Jews, they all had to leave. But yeah.
Were you always a writer? Was that something you were into from a very early age?
Yeah. Since I was, I think I wrote a lot when I was a kid because I was bad at communicating how I felt. And so I think I would write everything out to process my emotions. And then there was a moment, and then I think just having really encouraging teachers. And yeah, I'll never forget, when I was in 7th grade, I did this weird, expose type piece on the football team thing. And then my teacher helped me submit it to a national a student magazine, and it got published. And I remember just feeling so excited by it, being wow, this is an amazing feeling. And yeah, then I just kind of kept focusing on writing since then.
What was the expose about?
I wouldn't exactly call it an expose, but it was kind of basically it started as me and a friend at the time, we wanted a way to meet boys. So we decided we would join the football team.
Really?
Yeah, as a way, because, it's all boys. It'd be great. And so, but then her mom, so we told everyone in the school we were going to join the football team. And then when she told her mom, she was like, absolutely not. You're going to get hurt, tryouts or something. You can't do it. But my mom never says no to anything. So she's like, that sounds like a great idea. Go ahead. And we had told so many people we couldn't back down. So I did it alone. So I tried out for the football team.
Wow.
And it was actually really fun. I really liked all the obstacle courses and all the I don't know, putting us through it. I actually had a really good time. And then I ended up bonding with all the guys, but not in a flirty way, just in a it was just really enjoyable. And then I actually got injured from it. And yeah, and I just ended up writing about the dynamic of being the only girl trying out for it, and and how it felt and how I ended up really embracing it in the end, and yeah, writing about that. So yeah.
What do you remember from that experience? What has stayed with you outside of just the bonding experience of meeting these guys?
Yeah, I think it was also just the feeling of writing about this experience that felt so personal, and then having it be understood and recognized by total strangers felt so it made it feel important, and that was, and I think that especially as a 7th grader felt so wild, especially as someone who also was kind of nervous to like express themselves. I was like, wow, I shared it with people that like all over the country can read this. So yeah.
Did that change your mind about what you wanted to do with your life and the rest of high school? Like what you began to prepare for?
Yeah, I think after that moment, honestly, especially it was like the gentle like encouragement of my teachers, plus that kind of nod of like recognition just from the small award. I was like, oh, I think this is something I'm good at. So I just continued on after that, because I think sometimes that's all it takes is one little spark of like, oh, this is something I like that feels good and I'm good at it.
What makes someone good at that?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is the recognition, like feeling it, but also the enjoyment of doing the act, you know, like it felt very therapeutic to write about it. Like I remember feeling all these emotions of like being really upset about being heard and like feeling uncomfortable about being the only woman on the team, and also being young and being able to like articulate all those feelings felt really powerful.
Did you think after that you wanted to be a journalist? Was that sort of where your mind was, or?
No, I think so. Yeah, moving on to like in high school, I was like, I'm going to be like a serious novelist or like fiction writer. And I wrote this book. We're going real in depth here.
Yeah.
I wrote this book. My school had like an independent study type thing where you could choose to work with a teacher during like your lunch hour and work on a project. And I decided I wanted to write a book. So I worked with this teacher like every day, and I wrote this book and I self-published it. I just felt like I just really wanted to do this. So it was like this 200-page like fiction book. And and I published it. And, you know, I think it was like my English teacher read it, and like this random girl in my English class that was just for some reason like really into reading it, and she gave it back to me with like all of her notes on it. I was like, I didn't want this. But yeah, and then after that, I think it's so interesting because I think even though it was only high school, but I think every project you do, even if one person notices it, it can lead to something else. Because I just did this book because I just wanted to do it. And then after that, the high school drama teacher, like I wasn't involved in theater at all. And the high school drama teacher approached me and he's like, I heard you're like the 10th grader who published a book. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I want to write a musical, like an original musical. And I want a student to help me write it. And I want it to be about Amelia Earhart. And that's all I care about. But you can do anything you want with it. Like I'll give you the whole school budget. You can just go wild. But do you want to write the High School Musical? And I was like, sure. Like I was like, I'd never written a musical before, but I ended up writing the school musical, and it was so much fun. And and I think it's just, and it also I think sparked this also interest that I think is still true of me, which is that I loved trying new things that I've no experiencing in, and just being like, yeah, I love stepping into the unknown and being like, yeah, let's see how this works out. So yeah.
What did you end up writing about regarding Amelia Earhart? What do you remember?
So the musical was crazy. It was a 2.5-hour musical. He really did blow the budget. He was like, I'm leaving the school soon. Like, let's go nuts. So we like built an entire plane. Like it was very elaborate. Wow. It like went back and forth between like her life gearing up for the first flight, and also her being like stranded on an island after she crashed. Because it dealt with a lot of questions like what happens after she crashed? Like maybe she didn't die. There was also a weird subplot that he kind of pushed for the Japanese capturing her on the island. Yeah. And so, yeah, it got very, and then also just her relationships with her pilot and her husband. So yeah, it kind of covered a lot of ground. And it was also fun. I'd never written like lyrics for music before. So I worked with him to write lyrics, and that was really fun.
What do we know about the end of her life? She died in the 20s?
Yeah. And she was basically, I mean, everything about the end of her life is, well, it is a lot of the unknown, is that she crashed and no one ever found her body. So, I mean, you assume she died, but yeah, a big part of it was people always say, oh, maybe she just landed on an island somewhere. So yeah, I think it was kind of playing with that big question. Cause sometimes still, and I still get forwarded these articles, there are articles that come up of like, maybe this is what happened to Amelia Earhart. So yeah, you never know.
So then you graduate from high school. Where's your head at that point of what you want to be doing? Do you go to college for writing, for playwright?
So I graduated high school. I went to McGill in Montreal. Yeah, sure. I still knew I wanted to be a writer, but in my brain, I was like, I shouldn't go to a small liberal arts college with a good writing program because all writers like need interesting experiences to write about, not like just a good program. So I decided I wanted to go to McGill because I thought Montreal would be like an interesting city to gain experiences in. Because I thought maybe just a small school would be too like, I don't know, not stifling, but like I didn't think it would give me as much. This is me as my like 18-year-old brain.
Yeah.
So, but then I spent so much of my college time searching for writing classes because I had no creative writing. So I was like, it was really funny. Like I really had to be like hungry for it. Like so I joined like theater classes because that was like it wasn't really a creative school at all. It was much more science based.
Yeah.
I learned are much more theoretical. So yeah, so I majored in film theory, which, you know, it's a lot of essays, and it has bits of like philosophy thrown in, but yeah, it wasn't creative at all. But I found a lot of my, I think, creative footing, and I joined like the TV station. So I would write a lot of like comedy sketches for them. And yeah, and I think I also kind of learned or decided upon myself, like writing could be this thing that I could just, I don't know, I had to just seek out for myself instead of having it like taught and given to me. And I still think it's kind of true. Like obviously help is helpful, but I think sometimes you kind of need that like push of like, you got to really work for it. So yeah, but even in college, I was like, really have to work to try to be creative.
So you graduate, you're in Canada. Where do you go next?
So I graduate and then sort of in my last, so I decided just to come back to New York. I had gotten a job out of college writing for People magazine. So I came back to New York and it made sense. My family was here. And yeah, and then also in my like last month while I was in college, I was in this philosophy class for my degree. And I remember, and I honestly I liked philosophy, but I was never a great student in it. And I remember my professor saying how Kant would have been one of the greatest philosophers of all time if he had been able to feel love.
Whoa.
And yeah, I remember that quote really just striking me, and also thinking it was so funny, like how bad was his love life? And then thinking about what other philosophers' love lives were like Nietzsche or, you know, Hume. And so I kind of I remember like the rest of that day just writing out like imagined breakup letters in these philosophers' voices. And I just sent it to the New Yorker. And I was like, well, I'll probably never hear from them, but I just thought it was a fun idea. And then I went back to New York, and like, I remember this moment so distinctly. It was like, I had been back in New York for maybe like 2-3 months. It was like summertime. And I was like lying in my mom's bed, and I was like, I think I'm not going to be a writer anymore. And she was like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's just too hard. Like, I don't want to go down this path. It's going to be too difficult. And she was like, okay, like if that's what you want. And then within that same like minute, I just checked my phone and I got an email from the editor of the New Yorker, and they're like, all right, yeah, we love the philosopher piece. We're going to publish it. And it was just such a crazy feeling and moment that I was like, all right, I guess this is a sign that I have to keep writing. So yeah. And then that piece came out a few months later. And then and I was just happy to have I just sent it to like their general email. I didn't even expect them to read it. It got published, and then it ended up going viral because a bunch of people around the world thought it was like there were real excerpts of breakup letters. So like I had people like they're like masters of philosophy like emailing me all over the world being like, where did you find this excerpt? And I was like, if you can't tell this is a joke, you have problems. But yeah. And then after that piece, this publisher in London reached out to me that really liked the piece and they asked me to expand it into a book.
Whoa.
So yeah. And so that kind of led to a lot of other opportunities. But yeah, that was kind of my first big break in a lot of different ways of like writing for the New Yorker and getting a book deal like all at once.
So you had no contacts at the New Yorker?
No.
You literally sent it to the general inbox.
Yeah, that's why I was embarrassed to even say I submitted it to anyone because like it's never going to even get looked at.
Had someone told you that had worked for them?
No. I just, at that point, I was like 21. I was graduating college. Obviously, I was a big fan of the New Yorker as a writer. And I just was like, I don't know. I've always been someone who's like, I'm just going to shoot my shot.
Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen? So, so I was like, I don't know. I just wrote it and I was like, this just feels like something they would like. But it was my first time ever submitting to them. And I just tried.
And it took, 3 months for you to hear back from them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did they make you the financial component to this? Like, did they make you an offer to buy it and publish it? How does that work?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I will say the fees for payment for articles aren't that high. Like they paid me to publish it, of course, but I've always found that just the recognition and reach of pieces for the New Yorker are kind of, it's like more invaluable than like obviously more payment would be nice, but like it's definitely been a huge part of my career is having like the New Yorker name associated with me and then leading to more opportunities. But so they paid for the piece and then obviously had a separate contract for the book.
How did it go viral? Did it go viral through their publication or through like a social media post that they made? I
don't know, because also this was like 2015. So, like I don't even think I had Instagram then. Like it was very like, I think it's just like how anything goes viral. I think enough people send it to each other where it starts to catch on or, a lot of philosophy nerds out there. Yeah.
You said you were a big fan of the New Yorker. I am too, but I'd love to hear why. Like what is it about that magazine that you appreciate or have appreciated?
I don't know. I think it's just always been such a high caliber of writing, but it was in like all throughout high school and college, I would also have a lot of writing internships and a big part of like sometimes like I used to work at Symphony Space, and they do a lot of like readings with different authors, and they just had all these collections of like best of fiction. And sometimes I would just like read, like it was part of like my internship, and it was amazing. Like I would just have to read through all the different like best of fiction in the New Yorker, and it just always blew me away. I was like, this is the best writing that like the world can offer, kind of, and like. And it was always so different. And, but then it was interesting because I think also from working in like doing more like comedy sketches and getting into more, doing more like humor when I was in college, like the piece I ended up writing was like a Shouts and Murmurs piece, like more satire. So I think that kind of led me away from that like serious fiction world and into more comedy stuff.
Your professor said that he thought Kant would be the best philosopher in the world if he had had a better love life. What do we know about Kant's life? Like, why would he make a comment like that?
Well, because Kant is a philosopher who's very, it's like very black and white, moralistic. So I think, honestly, he's just like, sees him as a very uptight man. So yeah. Makes sense. Yeah, it would make sense to me. So I think that's why I'm like, maybe if he had a little love in his life, he'd be like a little bit more well-rounded. But
how did you learn or know what to write, how to write in these philosophers' voices? Like, it sounds like you had taken philosophy classes. Is it that simple? How did you develop that skill?
Yeah, I think just from reading about a bunch of different philosophers, and then just like feeling out their voices. I don't know. It just felt like a fun like conceit to try. Obviously it's not going to be completely accurate. It obviously seemed accurate to a lot of people, but yeah, I think just being like playful with it, but still overall like making them all sound kind of like miserable. Because I think that was also part of the fun of it, is like they're all these brilliant thinkers, but like they can't figure out how to like have a relationship
or a good time.
Yeah.
Do you personally have a favorite philosopher? Like of the ones you wrote about, do you resonate most with any of them?
Well, I think it's different because I think there are certain philosophers. Like I like Hume a lot, just as a philosopher.
Yeah.
But for example, like I feel like Nietzsche is so much fun to write about because he's so like nihilistic and dark that he's like, and he's more well known. So there's certain writers or philosophers that are more fun to poke fun at. But I wouldn't say he's my favorite. But so depends.
Do you typically agree with your professor's sentiment that if these guys would have had a better home life, more affection in their life, like it would have calmed them down a little bit, would have changed them?
Yeah, probably. And I guess also love or relationships does give you a different perspective on life. And that's what these philosophers are doing, is trying to help people navigate lives. So yeah, it wouldn't hurt,
So the book that you said a London publisher reached out to you. Tell me about that. How did that start? How did it go?
Yeah. So they reached out. It was very surreal because I was like 21. I was like,
that's so crazy.
Yeah. I went from being like, I'm quitting writing and I give up, to being like, okay, figuring out this like book contract. And and it was just, they were really amazing. They gave me so much freedom. They were really like, we love your style. Do whatever you want. We just want, so they helped me like, I worked with a really amazing editor, and she helped me like break it down into, like fun different sections of like, it turned into like love letters, breakup letters, had like different fun bits. And I also worked with a cartoonist from the New Yorker to like illustrate it. But and so I worked on it for like the next year or so. And it was a really great experience.
Did they offer you enough money for you to survive? How did that go?
No. So I was also still working at People magazine because I'd come back to New York to work at that job. So I was doing both at the same time. But then eventually I quit, because one, I was putting off the book for a long time because something, I had never experienced before was I was just so afraid. I was like, it really hit me like, oh, I might put out this book for all the world and it might be really bad. And that would be really embarrassing. And so I was procrastinating a lot. And I was really afraid to write this thing and have it be, embarrassing or not as good as it could be. And then eventually they needed something and I didn't really have much to send them. So I left People and I just went into like, deep production mode. And I dragged myself to New York Public Library every day. And I wouldn't let myself leave to go home for dinner until like I had written a certain amount of words. And just like really got into like a groove there and just did that nonstop for like a month or two. And
what are the other habits that you remember from that time that actually helped or contributed to you producing this?
That was a big one. Like I think I'm a big like work on a good reward system. Like I'll give myself a snack or like food nourishment if I like do enough work. So maybe not the healthiest, but it, worked for me. Just like, and also the fear of being like, all right, this, like, I didn't want to send anything late. So I was like, all right, both the time pressure and the food pressure was enough.
So how long did it take to get it done?
Like that library time was like a few months, but overall they gave me about a year.
After the book is done and out, do you then continue to be a full-time writer? What did your life look like after this surreal beginning to your career?
Yeah, I kept kind of continuing to, I kept continuing to write for other magazines. And I ended up writing for a lot of, like, I started working at New York Magazine, at Vulture for a bit, writing just about like pop culture and like interviewing like celebrities there. And then at the same time, I was still also writing for the New Yorker and just still sending them pieces and publishing with them there. And then also, and then it also came to like marketing the book, which was its own beast, I learned. But which I also actually had a lot of fun with like the publicity of it and everything. And then eventually I think I came to the realization I just found writing so lonely. And I was like, this is amazing, but it's just only me all the time. And so I wanted to do something where I was still writing with other people. So I thought writing for TV would be really fun because, it's like in a writer's room. I don't know, it felt different. And I had like the New Yorker behind, like, associated with me in my book. And I got an agent at the time. So I wrote a pilot based off of my book and went out to LA, and like my agent put me out in a bunch of meetings. And I was like very close to booking a job writing for a show, and then it didn't happen at the last second. But I just remember thinking like, okay, if I was this close and I was only there for like a week, I feel like I could make something happen if I just went there. So I just moved there without anything and just, tried to be a TV writer.
How did that go?
Good. Yeah. I mean, I remember I went there, and then as I was on the plane there, a friend of mine, like I landed, and then I got an email from a friend being like, oh, I know someone looking for like a writer's assistant. And so I remember I like interviewed for this job. And then at the same time, I remember I found this apartment, and I also didn't drive. And the apartment was like a 10-minute walk from the office where I wanted this job. I remember like when she was interviewing me about why I wanted the job, I was like, I want to be a writer's assistant, but also I would have a 10-minute walking commute in LA, which is unheard of.
For sure, yeah.
I was like, please help make this happen. And she was like, I remember her being like, this can't be the only reason you want the job. But I got both of those things. It worked out. Being a writer's assistant was interesting. A lot of it was, I was like typing up notes in the room while I was helping work on this variety show for TBS. And then also just helping to find like writers and actors and all different sorts of things for the show. But it's also a funny job for me to have. I'm actually a very slow typer. I actually was like bullied in middle school for being such a slow typer. So I was like, this is not the job for me. But the husband, so eventually the show was canceled and it didn't go anywhere. It was just for this pilot, but the husband of the woman who had hired me, I had like met him, just out once, and he remembered that I was French. And because of my dad, and so I have citizenship, and he was working on this new animated show, and it worked with a studio in France. So legally, no one could work, like everyone could work on the show, but no one could legally write episodes. You could only write outlines in LA, but only if you were French, you could write full episodes. Yeah. So he was like, do you want to write for this show? And I was like, yes, absolutely. So through this really, really weird loophole, I was able to write like so many episodes for this animated show. Meanwhile, there's like a whole writing team in LA, but no one could write episodes legally. So I wrote for this show called like Power Players for a while, which was out on like Netflix and Hulu. And it was like a kind of a show. the man who had like started this, he also created Ben 10, just like, very well-known kids animated show. And I helped write for Ben 10 with him for a while. And then he came out with Power Players. Which was like, became very big in Europe and in the States for 10-year-old boys. And so, so I got really into like the animated TV world through that.
Did you move to France, or you stayed in LA the whole time?
No, I stayed in LA the whole time. I would just Zoom with the producer in France, and we would talk about like edits or changes, but I never had to go to France. Yeah.
Did that take you into your next TV writing role? What happened next? Yeah.
So after that, I was kind of like, realized I really liked animated TV. And then I, was still throughout this whole time writing for the New Yorker. And when I was there, I remember like I would see this one cartoonist. She was a New Yorker cartoonist, but she lived in LA. And I really liked her style. And so I just reached out to her one day to get coffee. And as one does in LA. Yeah. And so, we got coffee and we just really hit it off. And then I just started thinking of a bunch of ideas to collaborate with her for New Yorker pieces. And I don't know, it was very inspiring to work with her. And so like before, sometimes they'll take something, sometimes they won't, but it felt like everything we sent them, like our editor just like really loved us working together. Like we were a really good fit. And then we even pitched like a dating column at the New Yorker, which they just didn't have, but we just took a shot, and she's like, sure, let's do it. So she took a chance on us, and we had like a recurring monthly dating column that she would illustrate and we would write together. So we really liked working together. And then one day we were having coffee, and she's like, I have this idea for a TV show about just a girl who can talk to plants. And I was like, yeah, that'd be really fun. So off of that, we just kind of started working on fleshing out an idea and like a pitch for it. And then she knew someone who worked at 20th Century Fox, and they do like The Simpsons, Bob's Burgers, everything. And she's like, I found a way to get like a coffee with this guy who works there. Like we could just try to pitch it to him. So just, we're like, all right, we'll just shoot our one shot. And because we both had managers, but I still always find sometimes it's just better just to like go after things yourself. So I remember like, we just like went in, and I still remember that day we were just like so like amped. And I think, and like, like you can of course be really nervous for these kinds of things, but I remember just having really good energy about it. And we pitched the show, and I remember the executive was like, okay, thanks. Like, I'll let you know. And I remember leaving, and I was like, okay, he did not like that, I guess. And then later that day, he was like, all right, I'd like to make an offer. I want to buy it. Yeah. So it's kind of crazy. This was like our first pitch, and we had never pitched anything. And they offered to buy the show. So yeah.
Then what happens?
So then COVID happens.
Oh shit.
But then so COVID was actually kind of amazing for animated TV because all production stopped. And so it was just only animated could kind of continue because you didn't need to be on set for anything. So even though 20th Century Fox had bought it, we still need to pitch it to a network. So it's just funny because when people are like, when COVID hit, I was just like baking bread and like vegging out. I was like, I've never worked harder than during COVID, because that was when we were like pitching our show over Zoom to all these executives at all these networks. But everyone was still quarantined, staying at home. Like it was still very unsafe to leave. So we would just practice every day on Zoom. Me, my writing partner, and the showrunner they had paired us with. So the three of us would just practice all the time. And then we pitched it to all the major networks. Remember we got offers. We got an offer from Amazon and from Freeform. And so we went with Freeform, and who's like it's Freeform, but it would like be on Hulu to be watched. And so that kind of started that journey of working on this pilot for about the show. Yeah.
Damn. I know too, just from our chat before we started recording, that you've traveled a lot of late.
Yeah.
How did that transition happen from living in LA, working in LA, to having the ability to go all over the world and seemingly probably still be working while you're abroad?
Well, so I worked on that show, and then after a few months in LA, I decided to go back to New York because I was missing my family, and I was like, I'll just go for a week. And then I just never went back. Like, I just went to New York, and I just kind of stayed here. And while I was here and also working on this show, I was also dealing with like a lot of really serious health issues. So I'd had this issue starting in college, but it's basically this rare autoimmune condition called uveitis that causes you to go blind.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it was always described to me as this very eventual thing that would happen. Like, they use this metaphor of like water rubbing on rock, where like it erodes it slowly, and day to day it's fine, but eventually I would go blind if they didn't find a solution. So it was kind of always this like fear that I dealt with, but honestly, I put my writing career first. Like, I was like, I want to make it as a writer, and I didn't really want to deal with this because I was like, this is depressing, and I just kind of mainly was in like denial about it. But around the time of like COVID and those first few months of working on the show, a doctor I was working with at like USC, he was like, I was on also like chemotherapy at the time because it's an autoimmune condition, so they want to try and like reset your immune system and hope that helps. And and the doctor's like, I don't see any changes. I genuinely don't think this is working anymore. And at that point, I had been on chemotherapy for like 2 years. So a big part of being back in New York, I was like, I want better doctors. I have this idea that doctors in LA don't work as hard because it's so nice out. So, but like New York doctors are miserable, so they're working really hard. So it's like, I want to be around New York doctors and my family. I'm just going to get some water. And so, that time was like, I'll put it back. That time was a very weird mix of being so deeply entrenched in this show and like helping write and create it, and also going to like eye doctors every day to try to not go blind. So I just felt like my life was like half health crisis, half like work crisis. Sorry. And then eventually they kind of like both came to a head at the same time. Like, we were producing the pilot for it, and then I was also, it turned out I was on a lot of different drugs, but nothing worked for my eyes. So they needed to do invasive eye surgery where they would put implants in the back of my eyes. I was just so entrenched in both. Like, I remember I was like at the hospital at 4 a.m. right before surgery. And as they were like prepping me, I was like, oh, I thought of another funny alt for like the pilot. And I was like emailing them as they were like prepping me for surgery. And I was like, even looking back, I'm like, I was too deep in, you know? But it was also in a way a nice distraction too, you know? Sorry, I'm like, sometimes I just get like a random coughing attack. And then the eye surgeries were very intense because they had to do one eye at a time. And when they put in an implant for one eye, I couldn't see for several weeks, and my vision would like slowly return. And so, it was a really intense process. Like, I was totally reshaping like how my vision, and also was starting I didn't realize at the time, like a really long journey with my eyes, and also felt like the biggest moment in my writing career. So it just felt like a lot of pressure. And then finally, and this went on for like a year and a half. And then eventually we had made the pilot for the show. We'd cast it, they'd animated it. And then through all of this, like, we were essentially in development from like selling it to creating the pilot for like almost 3 years.
Yeah.
And there had been so many different changes in like CEO and management of the networks that by the time we'd finally finished the pilot, like a new CEO had come in who hadn't originally bought it. And so I think they came in and they were like, what the fuck is this plant show? I don't think we want this. So we put like 3 years of work into this show that, like, essentially in the end, they were like, we actually don't want this anymore after like investing tons of money and time into this. So so they canceled the show and they just like lock it away because they own it.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's a weird thing where I'm like, I created this TV show, but no one will ever see it, or it'll never see the light of day unless like a new CEO comes, I guess, and decides they want a show about talking plants. But so sometimes I feel like I just dreamed it. But and then at the same time, finally my eyes were stable after like I'd had to get like 3 or 4 more surgeries. So it was like very grueling. And finally I was like, so I was just in and out of the hospital constantly. And I don't know, I think with intense health struggles comes a lot of life clarity, where I just was like, I finally cannot be in the hospital. I finally have like some free time. So it was around that time when a friend of mine was like, well, I'm going to Bali for work. If you want, you can join me for like a week or 2. So I decided to join her. Like I just got in clearance from my doctors and I joined her in Bali, and I was supposed to just stay for 2 weeks. And then I just remember like completely falling in love with it. And like, yes, it's a very beautiful place, but also I just felt so trapped for so long due to my health. Like I wasn't able to, like I was going to doctors every single day and back-to-back surgeries. So the fact that I was able to like leave New York and go as like across the world just felt so crazy to me, and not have to see a doctor. So I think I just fell in love with like that freedom and met so many people who were traveling and just, could do whatever they wanted. Like if I wanted to go to a waterfall, I could. If I wanted to do, and like my doctors, I remember always in the back of my mind being like, okay, well, don't do this in case like this could hurt your eyes or, whatever, like just be careful. But I was just kind of like intoxicated by my new freedom. So I ended up, instead of 2 weeks, I ended up staying there like 7 months. And I'm just gonna more. So let me know if this is like too long. And then while I was there, I was like moving around a lot, traveling a lot. And then I really found a desire for like, I don't know, more grounded community. Sorry. And so I decided, I was like, what if I taught, I remember seeing, especially around Bali and Thailand, so many things for like healing, like yoga and dance and all this stuff. So I thought like, what about like a writing workshop? Like there were no writing workshops really offered. So I remember I first started by just like, I went to this like, it was like this like weed dispensary shop in Thailand, but they also had like different like art workshops at night. And so I was like, could I just like teach a writing workshop here? And they're like, yeah, sure. That sounds great. And they had all the materials, and I remember they were so cool and supportive, and like 10 or 12 people came, and I remember leaving feeling so invigorated, and like I hadn't felt that like excited by something in like a while. And so yeah, I think I just I wanted to try to keep doing it. And then I got really into ecstatic dance, which is like, this form of dance that's very like grounded in like your body and focused on, it's like sober, and there's no phones or talking. It's all just to really be able to like listen to your body sensations. And so I like learned to DJ. I started like teaching ecstatic dance courses, and then I had this idea to combine the two. So, because it, after a dance like event, I think it's like exercise. Your mind is so clear, right? Because you have all these endorphins. And so I remember thinking, oh, it'd be so nice to like write down all of these like thoughts that I have. But usually after a dance, people just like leave or get a bite to eat. And so I decided to combine the two and offer writing workshops after I led dance. And when I eventually came back to New York, I started like, combining the two and feeling it out. And it was definitely a process. Like each time I would tweak it a bit. But now I like lead them pretty regularly, and it's a big part of my life.
The implant surgeries that you got, was that to completely remedy your situation? Like that was the move that allowed you to get permanently healthy? How did you get cleared by your doctors to be able to travel again?
Yeah, well, it was complicated because what was essentially making me would be causing me to go blind was this like inflammation that was attacking the back of my eye. And so the implants in the back of my eye, it was like a steroid in the back of my eye that would so it was releasing steroids in the back of my eye that was calming down the inflammation. And so eventually they saw that the inflammation was stopping because the steroid in the back of my eye was just blasting it. And it's so powerful. But then the downside of that was that the steroid was so powerful that it gave me glaucoma. So now the uveitis was clear.
Now you got to smoke weed.
Yeah, now I smoke weed and get glaucoma surgery. So then that led to like, because even though the inflammation was down, like when you're, it's like the pressure in my eye was way up. And if your pressure is too high in your eyes, then that can cause blindness. So it just kind of felt like sometimes like whack-a-mole, like you solve one issue and then something else pops up.
Yeah.
So then I just had a bunch of back-to-back eye surgeries to solve the issue of my eye pressure and the glaucoma. And so it was never a full fix, but it definitely was effective in helping stop the uveitis. It just caused other issues.
There was a long stretch of time, it sounds like, where you were convinced you were going to be blind.
Yeah.
How long did you believe that?
Well, I guess from 20 to like 26, it was like low grade. Like I still remember, especially my first appointment with the doctor at like 22. Like I remember just like going home on the subway and just crying. And that's a nice thing about New York. You just cry in public. No one cares. But like, I just remember just like openly crying, being like, I very much could lose my vision soon. And like, I don't know, it was always these moments of just looking around and being like, I really have to like take everything in. And it was really scary. Like, it's also when you're 22, no one's dealing with that.
Yeah.
So I couldn't relate to it with like anyone I knew. So it was really isolating. And as you might remember from earlier in our conversation, even though it started young, I think I always was a bit bad at like communicating how I felt. And so this especially, like, it kind of actually felt like a secret I had to keep. Like, no one's going to get it. Like so many times when I was like, I have bad eyesight, they're like, oh yeah, just get LASIK. Like no one could really grasp the situation. So for a long time, it was like, I feel really depressed after every eye doctor, and then I would kind of just like forget about it and like move on and just try to like put it out of my mind. But it wasn't until like 26, 27 where doctors were like, nothing's working, and if we don't do something, you will go blind. Like it always felt like an eventuality. Yeah. And then eventually it's like, oh, this is real.
What were the symptoms that made you know there was an issue in the first place?
I started seeing floaters. So they're kind of like black spots in your vision. And yeah, it's kind of like a dirty car window a bit is the only way I can explain it. And yeah, I saw when I was like, still in college. I remember made it really hard to read. And
it was that intense.
Yeah, it was really intense. And like everywhere I looked, like they would follow me. Wow. Like it was horrible. But I don't know. I was like, maybe I was just drinking. Like I was like, this is weird. And I came home for Thanksgiving and I mentioned it to my mom, and she immediately was like, okay, let's go see a doctor. And we did, and thank God we did. And the doctor's like, oh yeah, this is a retinal tear. So that's why you're seeing these floaters, but also it also looks like you have uveitis. So that's when he diagnosed me. Yeah.
You talked a little bit about what you learned from being that close to something that serious.
Yeah.
And that inspired a lot of the travel. What else comes to mind as to, most people will hopefully never go through something like that until they're much, much older. What about, how did that reprioritize? How did that change your priorities in life? Kind of going from that in your 20s to eventually seemingly being healthy again?
I think, well, one of the biggest things is just like, you never know when something's going to change. And maybe that's also due to the like very precarious nature of my eyes and my health. But like things can be nice for a moment, and then like in a second, it can be bad again.
Yeah.
So I think it's really like taking advantage of every moment that you have. And like, maybe it sounds corny, but I think that's what those first few moments of traveling taught me. And I still hold on to is like, every day that you're healthy, I think is so precious. And I think people take it for granted. But yeah, I think it's doing everything you want to do. It's seeing everything you want to see. I think it's, not being afraid. Like, I think a lot of times people I get the comment of like, wow, you're so brave, of like, I don't know. I think I will just, and I think was a bit like this before my eye stuff started, but I think I definitely will maybe more than the average person, just like do whatever I want to do or speak to who I want to speak, because it just feels like the stakes don't feel that high when you're like, you just kind of have to grasp everything while you can. And sometimes I've almost gone too far in this direction where I think I live sometimes so hard and so immediately that I like can't, it's hard for me to plan like long term. Like I've transitioned sometimes too hard to like take advantage of life. But I would say that's been my biggest like takeaway or influence from all of this is like, just want to do what makes me happy and what I enjoy while I can.
How do you think about the role of travel now that you're a little more rooted of, I know it sounds like you still want to do some traveling, but like, how do you think you've evolved in that direction of, rather than living in another country for 7 months in a row, how are you prioritizing where you want to be at this point?
Yeah. Sometimes, so much of my travel, I think, like that first round when I was like in Bali and Thailand, like it was amazing, but also there was a lot of like fear behind it, because it was the first time I was able to travel without being in the hospital. And I was like I kept being like, fuck, when are my eyes going to be bad again? Like I need to see everything while I can. So sometimes I just like be so exhausted, but I would be like, I have to go to this other city because like, what if I'm never going to be able to be back here and then my eyes are going to get bad again? So I kind of just like ran myself ragged a bit with this idea of like, I'm going to be running out of time. And now I think I'm trying to go at it a bit like slower. Yeah, like go somewhere and be there for like a few weeks and not have to be there for like a day or two and then leave just because I'm like afraid, but go somewhere because I genuinely want to go there and like try to settle into a place.
What's the role that writing is playing in your life these days?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think although I'm always still writing, like my writings changed a lot. I think in needing to be more vulnerable and like honest in my own life because of like my health issues. I think I've like started writing like less satire and comedy and more like personal stuff. Like it's interesting. Like I think my writing just evolves as I evolve. So yeah, so I think I still lead a bunch of writing workshops. Yeah, I'll be leading one in January nearby. I think I still like I still want to continue in like writing for magazines, and I still write for the New Yorker. I still I write more, but I write more about like health or travel now. So yeah, so I'll write like a newsletter. I write for like different sites, like the site Bezzy. I write like regular like health articles for them. And you know, I'm still like, yeah, I think I'm still always interested in trying out different genres that I'm not used to. Like sometimes I'll do psychedelic writing. I'm also still like currently also like working on a new book about kind of everything I just mentioned of like my travels and my health and dance and how it kind of all like intertwines and has like really, yeah, led me into this totally different path. But yeah, it is interesting. I think all of my health issues have just been made such an impact on me that it's kind of hard to continue as I once was. So still writing, but like adapting in a different way, I guess.
As far as you know right now, is your eye health solid? Where are you with that?
Yeah, it's funny you ask. It's solid, but it's always maybe changing. Like it has been solid for the past like few months. And then literally yesterday I had an appointment and the doctor was like, well, I actually see a little bit of inflammation, but let's just like try this medication and see if it goes away. And like I just started like staring off to the distance and he's like, are you okay? And I'm just like, is it back? Like, because you know, when there's inflammation, that could mean the uveitis is back, which means the implants have run out because they only have a 3-year life span, and it's been like 4.5 years. So, but he was like, don't spiral. Let's just see you in like 2-3 weeks. So that's the thing. It's like, yeah, for the past 2 months I've been good, and then like it might be bad again. So yeah, that's why it's also hard not to like make. So I don't really like to like make a lot of plans, you know, because yeah, in the second my eyes could be bad again, and then like every plan is out the window, and I have to cancel everything for another surgery. So yeah.
Did you know going into your first surgeries that most likely, given that there was only a 3-year time period on this, that eventually you would have to get more surgery?
Yeah.
You knew that?
Yeah.
So that's a probable outcome in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, but up till like literally yesterday, it's been completely clear to the point where they're like, I think maybe it just, the disease burned itself out and you're good, which has been like a godsend.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that's still the case. And I think hopefully if it was much worse, then I don't think my doctor would have lied to me.
Yeah.
But hopefully not. So yeah. So I hope I don't have to get another of those implants because they're fucking horrible.
I'm sure they
awful.
are. But at least there is an option there.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It could be helpful if it's really required.
True.
Yeah. I'd love to close with this. I always ask people about how they think about success. I think you're a person who's uniquely suited to address this question, given your life experience, which I knew nothing about. When you think about the word success as it applies to your life, your career, how do you think about that right now? What does that word mean to you?
Yeah, I think before I would have easily answered it to just be like, to be recognized by your peers in like in your field. And while, I still think that is like true and worthy and admirable, I think it goes hand in hand with just like living a good life where you're like healthy and surrounded by a good community. So yeah, I'd say if you can do that and also make art that you care about and I think helps maybe make the world a little better, I feel like that would be success.
Yeah. Health being up there.
Health, yeah. I think they're intertwined for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you so much.